Are you someone who grew up in the 1960s? You're 6 years old, sitting in a classroom. Everything feels normal. Then suddenly the teacher shouts something strange. Get under your desk, now! You duck down, cover your head tight. Your heart races like never before. No one explains anything. No one says it's just a drill. You only feel one thing. Something out there is dangerous. You don't understand war, but you understand fear. And the strange part? The next day you go back to class, like nothing happened, like it's just part of childhood. So here's the question. Growing up in a world like that, what did it quietly do to your mind today? As you get older, you start noticing something odd. Some people almost never complain. They lose their job, they get sick, they even lose loved ones. But when you ask if they're okay, they just say, I'm fine. And that's it. No details, no explanation, no need for you to understand more. And somehow they keep going, like everything was handled in silence. Most people look at that and think, that's strength. They call it resilience, maturity, emotional control. But here's what people rarely ask. What happens when you're never allowed to be weak? What happens when you learn to swallow emotions as a child? And more importantly, is that really strength? Or just a way to survive in a world that never gave you space to feel? So the real question is, why do people who grew up in the 1960s choose silence over sharing? And that silence, is it protecting them or quietly hurting them even today? First, you need to understand this. People from that era didn't grow up in an emotionally safe world. They were raised by people who survived war, who knew hunger, loss, daily survival. In that world, feelings weren't the priority. Survival was. No one sat down and asked how you felt. No one taught you to name your sadness. If there was a problem, you handled it. If it hurt, you endured it. If you were scared, you stayed quiet. And a child's brain learns fast. It doesn't analyze. It adapts. It forms a simple belief. Emotions don't help me survive. Control does. This is emotional conditioning. No one teaches it with words. You learn by watching. You see your father never cry. You see your mother keep going, exhausted. You see adults always fine. And you understand one thing. To survive in this world, you have to be like that too. So you start doing something familiar. You keep everything inside. You're sad, but say nothing. You're hurt, but still smile. You're scared, but act normal. Not because you don't feel, but because you learned that showing emotion isn't necessary, maybe even dangerous. Imagine an 8-year-old boy. He falls off his bike. His knee is bleeding. He runs home. And the response he gets is, "You're fine, get up." No long hug, no conversation, just one clear message. Keep going. That boy grows up into a man who never says he's hurting. Sound familiar? Maybe you've felt this too. You go through something hard, you want to talk, but a voice inside says, "It's fine. I can handle it." And you stay quiet. Not because you're stronger than others, but because your nervous system was wired that way early on. You don't lack emotions, you just don't feel safe showing them anymore. But that's not the whole story. Something else forms at the same time, quietly, powerfully. A deep belief. I have to handle everything myself. That generation grew up in a different world. No internet, no tutorials, no instant answers. If something broke, You fixed it. If you got lost, you figured it out. No one came to rescue you. And your brain recorded that every day. It built a system. Everything depends on me. In psychology, it's called an internal locus of control. Simply put, my life is my responsibility. That sounds positive. And it is. These people are highly independent. They don't wait. They don't blame. They don't panic easily. When problems come, they act. But here's what most people miss. When you're used to handling everything alone, you stop sharing. Picture this. You're struggling, maybe work, maybe family. Someone else might call a friend or talk it out, but not you. Your first instinct is, let me think. No need to bother anyone. You sit alone, you think, you solve. Even when it's overwhelming, you stay silent. Not because no one is there, but because you're not used to relying on anyone. You're used to being the one who fixes things, not the one who needs help. Sound familiar? You might be the one who helps everyone else, always listening, always giving advice. But when it's your turn, you don't even know how to start. Because deep down, you've been programmed, I should handle it myself. This creates a very specific kind of person. On the outside, strong, independent, reliable. But inside, they carry everything alone. And over time, opening up stops feeling natural. It becomes difficult. Most people think those who don't show emotions are cold or that they don't feel deeply. But the truth is, this isn't just behavior. It's identity. Over time, silence stops being a choice. It becomes who they are. They start believing strength means not complaining. Maturity means enduring. Love means action, not words. And when a belief repeats long enough, it stops being a thought. It becomes you. Think about this. You grew up seeing the strongest people stay silent. They didn't cry. They didn't talk about pain. They just kept going. So you learned, if I want respect, I have to be like that. So you built a version of yourself, one that isn't weak, doesn't need anyone, doesn't break easily. But here's the key part. That's not your true self. That's a defense mechanism. You suppress emotions, not because you don't have them, but because no one ever taught you how to express them safely. No one taught you to say, I'm sad. I need help. I'm not okay. So you learned not to say anything. It looks like strength, but really, it's adaptation. And here's the revelation. The people who seem strongest are often the ones who learn to hide their weakest parts, not because they don't have them, but because they believe no one wants to see them. They love deeply, but they show it through actions, through responsibility, through being there when it matters, not through words. And sometimes, they don't even realize they're carrying too much alone. You might see yourself in this. You don't like complaining. You don't want to bother anyone. You take pride in being fine. But if you're honest, there are moments you wish someone would ask, are you really okay? And this time, you wouldn't have to say, I'm fine. If you recognize yourself here, pause for a moment and look at it differently. You're not cold. You're not hard to reach. You're just someone who learned to stand on your own early. You didn't grow up talking about feelings. You grew up solving problems. When something happens, you don't ask, how do I feel? You ask, what should I do? That's the difference. You don't love with long speeches. You love through small actions. You show up. You help. You take responsibility. And you think that's enough. Put everything together and the picture becomes clear. You were taught to control emotions. You learned to handle everything yourself. And eventually, you turned that into who you are. This isn't random. It's a psychological system built over time. You belong to a unique group. People who weren't taught how to feel, but trained how to endure. No one taught you what to feel. Life taught you how to survive. And because of that, you became strong in a very quiet way. So when you look back, what you call strength might not be something you chose. It might be something you learned to survive. You learned to stay silent, to handle things alone, to not need anyone. And over time, it became normal. But here's the important question. Is being able to carry everything alone really strength, or just a habit you never stopped to question? Because sometimes it's not that you don't need people. It's that you were never taught how to meet them, never allowed to be a little vulnerable. And maybe real strength isn't carrying everything alone. It's knowing when you don't have to anymore. If you see yourself in this video, maybe it's time to rethink what being strong really means. If you enjoy content like this, hit subscribe.